Hi, I'm Josh, and it's my turn to do the review of the week 3 session of Understanding Language Learning and Teaching. So this week we've been talking about technology in language learning and teaching, and particularly about learning online. And it's great to see that there are still so many of you engaging with the course. I think in this week we've got close to 100 comments on several of the steps now, and there are still more people joining the course. So I'd really encourage you to go back to the week 1 steps and look at the comments and welcome new participants into our learning community, because I think that's one of the things we've been discussing this week, is how important it is to create a kind of welcoming environment, an online environment for learning, and to encourage people to participate. Anyway, at the beginning of this week, we asked you what you wanted to find out in the course. And as usual, many of us said we wanted to find out about new technologies that we can use with our students, or things we could use to help us learn a language, technologies we can use to help us learn a language. And I'm going to come back to sharing some ideas about that at the end of this video. So I hope you'll stay with me until the end. There were also questions and suggestions about how to encourage safe and responsible use of technology for learning, avoiding addiction, being safe with your data online, things like that. So that came from Eileen. I think a conversation was started about that, and there's some interesting suggestions there. So look at that conversation. And also people had suggestions about how to find out more about techniques for teaching with technology. So I shared a few links there in a conversation with Raoul, and I'd encourage anyone else who has suggestions about that to add comments there. We then moved on to look at the difference between online learning and face-to-face learning, and also whether it's possible to learn a language online. And I think the second question is closely related to the first one, really. So for these steps, I've pinned some of the conversations that I found interesting to the top of these steps, but I'll kind of summarize my own thoughts, or synthesis of my thoughts and your thoughts, the ones that I've read about this. So I think many of us agreed there are now very many different ways of learning online, and really comparing face-to-face with all types of online is not a sensible question, because face-to-face learning through Skype, Zoom, other video conferencing technologies is kind of possible online too. So I think we need to look at the different types of online learning, whether they're synchronous, asynchronous, whether they involve video, audio, just text, the kinds of media. These all have different affordances or create different opportunities for learning. And I think what constrains language learning is the kinds of opportunities for interaction there are. So language learning through text and asynchronous practice may be very useful for that kinds of language use, but language learning in that way for speaking and listening may be much less useful. So I think my feeling anyway is that, as many people said, language learning online is of course possible, but there are various different dimensions to language learning and various different dimensions to the kinds of things you can do online, and those interact to help you develop particular language learning skills or not. I think a lot of people thought that some kind of blending of online and face-to-face was their ideal solution for language learning and for all kinds of learning. Next, we looked at engaging with online learning and the role of the learner, I guess, in terms of how important it is to participate, to self-regulate, to take control, to not spend all your time, but also to make sure you spend enough time looking for conversations to engage with and putting effort into it. And I think Olesya highlighted the importance of participating, but also the importance of being appreciated, of others noticing your participation, replying to you, liking your comments, etc. So that kind of turns to the role of online tutors and mentors, and how we need to make our presence felt on courses so that students remain motivated and feel like they are engaging in a community and there are people listening and reading their comments and giving them feedback. And I also wanted to mention a comment from Joy Joy Chan, which kind of reverses that and says, well, the emphasis is on the participants to reach out for attention, to make themselves seen and stand out on the course. So some kind of mixture between that, but definitely a highlighting the need for participants to engage and make themselves seen, noticed, stand out on the platform, and the need for tutors to create an environment where people feel safe to do that. So lots of people found the section on e-tutor roles useful, and there's a really nice conversation started I think by Victoria, and involving Elena and Sergio and many others, discussing how similar the roles of online tutors and face-to-face teachers are really, and beginning to look at how the real difference is the ways in which we can enact those different roles. How can we make our presence felt in the classroom? How is it different, the ways that we can make our presence felt online? How can we be empathetic? How can we encourage students? How can we support the kind of human contact that people like Rona mentioned, or pat on the back, which I think Rachid mentioned? How is this kind of encouragement possible in online environments? Is it possible, in fact? So there's a nice conversation also about the joys of e-learning started by Yui, I think, where I shared a link to some work on the use of emoticons in written online learning environments, or in written communication, in fact. And I guess the evolution of those, and the ways humans find to try to give each other virtual pats on the back or share emotion through written online environments. Also, now I'm coming to the end of this video. I wanted to flick back to week 1, because I'm still really enjoying the conversation there about implied meaning and different ways you might ask people to close the door without saying, "Can you close the door?" for example. Or there are some nice ones, I think Caribbean dialects, where they talk about how to ask, to point out to people that they didn't say good morning, for example. So if you've got any good examples of interesting expressions with implied meanings, please add them to that conversation, which I'm linking to at the end of this too. Sorry, on the course steps, you'll see a link to this. Anyway, it's time for me to wrap up. So what I said I was going to do is mention some of my favorite technologies at the moment for language learning. And I'll just very quickly say that I'm interested in virtual reality and in voice recognition, because that enables us to kind of do speaking interaction in computational environments, get the computers to do things in virtual environments that give us the kind of feeling of having a reaction to our speech. And these are not very sophisticated at the moment, but I think there's one from the British Council where you can learn Chinese or English to tell a dog to do things. I'll leave a link there, which points one direction that things might go in the future. So I'll leave plenty of links under here, and I'll add a comment with a list of my favorite technologies for teaching and learning at the moment. And I'll look forward to spending time with you on the course next week, when we'll be turning to the fascinating topic of English and Englishes and the evolution of English for the future. So thank you very much, everyone, for your fantastic contributions, and I hope you carry on with the course and enjoy it, and give us feedback to help us learn how to improve it in the comments on this step. Thanks. Bye.